morning, girls. Good Sunday morning. How are you? Go ahead and comment down below what you've been doing this week, something fun or something fun that might be coming up this week, and a prayer request. I'm sorry, my lighting is off and it's distracting me, okay? So, good morning. Last week, we learned about Esther and how she was chosen to be queen to King Ahasuerus. Did you remember that name? So Esther was chosen to be queen, and her cousin Mordecai, who raised her because her parents had died, he was sitting outside the gate to kind of keep tabs on Esther, make sure she's safe and everything. He overheard some people talking about killing the king. He got message to the queen, and the king's life was saved. So at this point, God has used Esther in that way. But today we're going to learn about chapters 3 through 8, and God is going to use Esther in a way that I'm sure she never imagined. So if you'll turn to Esther chapter 3, in chapter 3, a man named Haman is chosen as King Ahasuerus' number one man. He's it. He takes care of everything. The king trusts Haman with everything. When Haman would walk around, everyone that would see him would bow down to him. And he would walk around by the gates and everyone would bow down except Mordecai. Mordecai was a Jew and he wasn't bowing to anybody that wasn't the Lord. So this made Haman really angry. In verse 5 of chapter 3, it says, "And when Haman saw that Mordecai bowed not, nor did him reverence, then Haman was full of wrath. And he thought scorn to lay hands on Mordecai alone. For they had shown him the people of Mordecai, wherefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews that were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, even the people of Mordecai." Now, who is in Mordecai's family? Esther. So by Haman saying, "I want Mordecai dead, all his people, all the Jews," he's really saying he wants the queen dead, but they don't know she's a Jew yet. Hang with me. So Haman got the king to agree that all the Jews were to be destroyed. Well, the king, he just trusted Haman. He trusted his right-hand guy. So he said, fine, it's a law. Now in chapter 4, verses 1 through 3, we learn that Mordecai and all the Jews, when they find out about this, they weep. Of course, they're going to be destroyed. They're going to be killed. They weep. And they put on sackcloth and ashes. Remember, we've talked a little bit about that in other lessons. They wouldn't wear like their normal clothes. They would put on this sackcloth, and they would take ashes like from a fireplace, and they would put it on their heads. And that's how they would show that they are deeply sad. And they were in mourning, knowing that they were going to be destroyed. Now, Queen Esther, she saw that something was wrong. People took word back to her like, Mordecai's sitting out there in sackcloth and ashes. He's looking really sad. And so she sent somebody to ask him what was wrong. And Mordecai told him, talking about the person that Esther sent, of all that had happened unto him, and of the sum of the money that Haman had promised to pay to the king's treasuries for the Jews to destroy them. So Mordecai told him everything. And that man took the message back to Queen Esther. Verse 16 in chapter 4. Esther is telling her people, "Go gather together all the Jews that are present in Shushan, and fast ye for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, night or day. I also and my maidens will fast likewise. And so will I go unto the king, which is not according to the law, and if I perish, I perish." So once Queen Esther found out what was going to happen to all Jews, including herself if she was found out, she said, okay, Mordecai, I want you and I want all the Jews around to pray for me. I want you to fast. And me and my maidens, we're going to fast also. And I'm going to go before the king. And nobody could go before the king unless he called for them. But she was going to be brave and do this. And the end of that verse says that she said, if I perish, I perish. So if the king kills me for doing this, it's fine with me. I'm going to try. Esther was very brave. So Esther went before the king And he held out his scepter to her to say, it's okay. And she came in and he said, whatever you want, to the half of my kingdom, you can have half of anything I've got. What do you want? And she said, I want you to come to a feast. You and Haman, come to a feast. And he said, done. So they go to the feast and they have a wonderful time. Esther was just a wonderful hostess. And he said, okay, Queen Esther, what do you want? I'll do anything for you. You can have half of everything I have. And she said, I want you to come to one more feast. And he said, done, we'll be there. And so Haman went home and he told his wife and all of his friends, Queen Esther, let me come to this exclusive party. And she wants me to come to another one. This is amazing. I am number one. He ain't gonna be number one for long. Now that night, the king could not sleep. And so he did something a little strange. He had the people come in and read the records to him of everything that had been happening in his kingdom. I guess that's boring and one way to fall asleep. So they came in and they read the records off. And he learned that Mordecai was the one that warned him about the people who wanted to kill him. So up until then, he didn't know the man's name. And he learned that. And he thought to himself, this man has got to be rewarded. He saved my life. So the king said, who's near me? Who's around? Who's out there in my palace? And his servant said, well, Haman's out there. He said, call him in here. I need him. I need him. And so verse 6 of chapter 6 says, and Haman came in, and the king said unto him, what shall be done to the man whom the king delighteth to honor? So he's saying, what should I do for a man who I want to honor? And Haman's thinking, oh, he's talking about me. He's got to be talking about me. I am number one. Haman says in verse 8, let your royal apparel be brought, which the king useth to wear, and the horse that the king rideth upon, and the crown royal which is set upon his head, and let apparel and horse be delivered to his hand. And he goes on and on and on. And he's thinking, I'm about to get some nice clothes and a horse and a crown, because he's got to be talking about me. The king's got to be talking about me. The king was talking about Mordecai. Verse 10. Then the king said to Haman, make haste, or hurry, and take the apparel and the horse, as thou had said to do, even so to Mordecai the Jew, that sitteth at the king's gate. Let nothing fail of all that thou hast spoken. So he said, everything you said, take it to Mordecai. Do it. Make haste. Hurry. Do this to Mordecai the Jew. What do you think Haman did? Oh, he was shocked. He was devastated. He was angry. So after this, and after Mordecai had received all of his rewards, Haman went home and was tore up. He was mourning. He told his wife and his friends, I can't believe the king would do this. I deserved all that good stuff, and it went to a Jew. And then he was beckoned to come to the second feast. Remember, Esther still had one more feast she wanted them to go to. So they're at this feast and they're having a wonderful time. And the king said, again, my queen, anything you want, up to half of my kingdom, I'll give it to you. What do you want? And she said, verse 3 of chapter 7, then Esther the queen answered and said, if I have found favor in thy sight, O king, and if it please the king, let my life be given to me at my petition, and my people at my request. So she's saying, please, let me live. Let my people live. For we are sold, I and my people, to be destroyed, to be slain, and to perish. So this is the first that the king is hearing, that she is a Jew, that her and her people are the ones that he agreed to let be destroyed. Verse 5, then King Ahasuerus answered and said unto Esther the queen, who is he, and where is he that durst presume in his heart to do so? So who wants to destroy you? And Esther says, he's sitting right there, Haman. Oh, the king was mad. He was so angry. So the king left the banquet, and Haman is left there totally in shock. And he begs Queen Esther, please, please don't let the king kill me, please. And he's begging for his life. And the king came back in, and he was not real pleased with Haman that he was still there hanging out with Queen Esther. So at this point, he had it. And one of his servants said, Well, you know, Haman's been making these gallows for Mordecai, which was a way to kill Mordecai. And the king ordered that Haman be killed on the very thing that he made to kill Mordecai. So after that, Mordecai finally came unto the king, and he was able to be with his cousin, Queen Esther, again, and they were able to tell the king freely, we are Jews. And the king was not angered with them. He was very pleased with Mordecai, and he took off his ring and gave it to Mordecai. And he said, whatever rule you want to make for your people, here's my ring, that'll make it official. So Mordecai decided that the Jews needed a way to defend themselves from their enemies. If someone were to come and attack them, they needed weapons to be able to defend themselves. And so they got that. And for the first time, the Jews weren't afraid. Let's look at verse 16 of chapter 8. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor, and in every province and in every city, whithersoever the king's commandment and his decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a good day. And many of the people of the land became Jews, for the fear of the Jews fell upon them. So the Jews were free. They were happy. They were rejoicing. They were celebrating. Many other people became Jews and believed like they did. They saw that they were no longer going to be persecuted. So I want you to remember, Esther started out as just a girl. Her parents had died. Her cousin was raising her. She never dreamed that she would be queen. And once she was queen, I'm sure she never dreamed that she would be able, with God's help, to deliver the Jews from persecution. It is amazing. Don't ever think that God cannot use you. He can, and he will, and he loves you, and he's got a huge plan for your life. And I'm 35 years old. I know he's still got good things for me, and he's got great things for you. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.